back with another video for Ophelia Talks. And in today's video we're going to be making a baby cardigan. I wanted to keep things really simple and I wanted to create a pattern for a baby cardigan that you would just know by heart almost, and that you would be able to whip up like in a day. For example, this one here, I made this in a day and it doesn't even use a whole ball of yarn.
This is what I have left over.
So I just wanted to come up with a pattern that is effective, nothing tricky about it, but that is straightforward and that you can easily make in a day. So let's get started, and first of all let's see what we need. So what do you need for your baby cardigan? Well, actually I am just using a selection of yarns that I have lying about here in my stash. So I found a ball of this, which I think would be a really nice little baby cardigan. I had an Emotions that I had started, didn't like the color for me, but I'm thinking, look, it makes a really pretty baby cardigan, so that worked really well as well. And then of course you can just use your straightforward DK yarns that you have. This is Wendy Supreme, there's also Starcraft Special DK. So whichever yarn I have here, whichever yarn I have used, it is DK yarn. Then of course for this yarn here I am using a 3.5 because the yarn, the DK yarn, is normally prescribed for a 4, but I use a 3.5. You will also need scissors and your darning needle for your yarn. But then also for finishing the cardigan you will need some buttons. Now I went online because I wanted plain wooden buttons in different sizes, of course, for my different sized cardigans, and I found this. I will link it down below in my Amazon shop, and I looked very carefully when I was looking for these buttons at how big the holes would be, because you need to work out that actually the holes are a certain size so that you can get your yarn through. And then here I have these two needles, and these needles go through the holes. So I've got these separate, I found these, I keep them separate for this kind of task. So they go through the holes of the buttons with the yarn in them, and their eyes are still big enough to to allow me to put the yarn through. So that's one of those things that you just need to keep in mind. Make sure that if you find buttons to use for your baby cardigans or for any cardigans or for sewing on with DK yarn, you need to make sure that the holes are big enough and that you have the needles that will go through the holes with the yarn. So there we go. Those are the buttons that I am using. As you can see, there's various sizes, so that's good because then you can just gauge it and see which size would go well with which size of cardigan. So let's get started. So today I'm just going to be using any colour for my cardigan. I've chosen Wisteria here. So we're going to get started with making our hexagon. And so you make your slip knot, insert your hook. I'm using my 3.5, and we're going to make a chain of 4. So you yarn over, pull through the loop on your hook, and you do that 4 times. Then you go into that first chain that you made and you loop around the working yarn, bring it through the stitch and through the loop on your hook. We've now made a little circle and we are going to chain 2. This chain 2 is going to count as a double crochet, and it's going to be the first double crochet of our first cluster. So we're going to make a cluster of 3. So we need to add 2 more double crochets to this. Voila. Then we are going to chain 2, and then we make another cluster of 3 double crochets. So a double crochet is yarn over, you insert into the little circle, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we do this 3 times because our clusters are made up of 3 double crochets. and I use American terminology. And we are doing 2 chains. And we make another cluster. So in total, we're going to have to make 6 clusters of 3 double crochets. Because of course, yes, it's a hexagon. 2 chains, another cluster of 3 double crochets, voila. And now try and scoot your stitches over a little bit so you've got a little bit of space again to work in. Then you do 2 more chains, another cluster, and let's see how much space we have now. Okay, a bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters, 1, 2 chains, and for my 6th cluster, scooting everything about a bit more, making 3 more double crochets here, voila. And now we do 1, 2 chains, and then here we're going to skip these 2 chains here that we did to start with, go under the V there, and we do a slip stitch. There we go. Okay, so now we have done our inner circle for our hexagon, and to start the next round we really are in the wrong place, but to solve this in an easy and straightforward way, we're just going to go and do a slip stitch under the next V and another slip stitch into the next chain space there, voila. And now we're in the correct location to get started. This round 2 we are going to be doing all corners, so let's get started by doing 2 chains. Again, this chain will count as a double crochet but at the end of our row here, so we're just going to add 2 more double crochets to that to make up our cluster. That's our first cluster. Now we scoot it over a little bit, because now as we're making corners we're doing 2 chains, and we're going to be placing 3 more double crochets in that same location here. So yarn over into the same corner chain space for 3 more double crochets. So 1, 2 and 3. Voila. So that's our first corner done, and now we're going to do the same thing in each of our chain 2 spaces around our work. And of course that means we're going to be making 6 of them. So yarn over into the next chain space and you place 3 double crochets, 2 chains and 3 double crochets. And we are not placing any chains in between these. Okay, so you only place chain 2s in the actual corner chain spaces. Voila, and off you go to the next corner chain space, and this is how you will continue all the way around. And like I said, we will be making 6 of these corners in this round. Okay, so I have made my 6 corners here. I'm now going to close my round, so I'm skipping the 2 chains here, going under the next V there and doing a slip stitch. And again, I'm not in the correct place, so I'm just going to do a couple of slip stitches to bring me to the correct place. And now we're going to do round 3. And really, round 3 is the round that we are going to keep on repeating throughout this hexagon. And of course, you're going to have to decide how many rounds you're going to do for this particular baby cardigan. So you will have to choose from about 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds and then larger and larger as the size increases. So today we're going to make our hexagon 10 rounds. So we've done 1, 2. I'm starting the third round, and of course here we have a corner. So I'm going to make a corner. So chain 2 and add 2 double crochets, chain 2, and then add another 3 double crochets in the same location. And now to get to the next corner, the distance is a bit bigger, and we have location between the 2 clusters. Now here in round 3 we only have 1 location. In the next round we will have 2 locations, then 3 locations, 4, and so on. So each time you will be doing more and more clusters in between the corners. So for round 3 it's just the 1. There we go. Now here we meet another corner chain space. So let's do a corner there. So 3 double crochets, yep, 2 chains and 3 double crochets. Voila, there we go. So we have 2 corners done and 1 side as well. And so like I said, for each round now you're going to close your round with a slip stitch, then you do your 2 slip stitches to get to the corner chain space. You start with 2 chains and make your corner. Then you are going to be placing clusters in between the clusters from the row below, and of course each time you're going to be doing more and more clusters, and then you'll do another corner in the next corner chain space. And this is how you're going to continue until you have done 10 rounds in total. I will see you now when you have finished your hexagon of 10 rounds. So here I am, I have just about finished my round, and I have now done 10 rounds on my hexagon. So this is big enough for the size of baby cardigan that I'm wanting to make right now. Now that we've finished our hexagon, we're going to add 1 more side. So I'm wanting to make the middle, the back, a little bit wider, so that our baby has a little bit of space in there and that we have a neck opening. So as you can see, I've done 2 slip stitches to bring me to the corner chain space. Then I'm going to do 2 chains. This will represent my first double crochet, and then I'm going to add 2 more double crochets into that chain space. And now we're going to work a row along here. So only 1 row along one side. So let's start doing our clusters as we are used to, of course. So I just made it to the end of the row, and in this chain space I'm going to be placing 3 double crochets. So we started with a chain 2 and 2 double crochets, and here we now finish with 3 double crochets. So this is what our hexagon looks like now. So let's cut off the yarn, pull out the end. So we now have an extra row on one of the sides of our hexagon. So now when we fold our hexagon, so it looks like our cardigan. There we go. We have the sleeve here, and we have indeed a row extra at the back, and that's going to make our back a little bit wider. So now, of course, you're going to have to make a second one. So I will see you when you have made that, but you only work until you have done your 10 rows. When you start your extra side here, come back to the video because we are going to use that row to adhere the 2 parts together. So here I am just about finishing my last round of my hexagon. I've done 10 rounds here as well. So close this round with a slip stitch, and then exactly the same as what we did here. We're going to continue with another slip stitch and another slip stitch into the next corner chain space. I'm going to do 2 chains, and now we are ready to start doing our side. So now we've done our 2 chains, we're going to go over to our previous hexagon, and I haven't sewn in any ends because that's what I do when I'm making garments. I do not sew in anything until it's all done. And I'm going to go into that first V that you see there
Of the extra row on the other hexagon.
and I'm going to bring up a loop and do a slip stitch. Then I'm going to do my second double crochet, and here as well into the V, and I do a slip stitch. Now I'm only going to be doing this for the first 3 stitches going into each stitch, just so that we have a good adherence, okay, because it is a garment and it will, be stretched. So now I'm going to do my 3 double crochets for my next cluster in the location that it would naturally be. There we go. And now I go over to my previous hexagon, go in between the 2 clusters, bring up a loop and do a slip stitch. And then I have adhered like this, so we have a little hole. If you don't like that, you can do this for every stitch like we did here. You can, that's not a problem. So that's a choice that you could make. So there we go. I'm going to do the next one, and I'm going to work my way all the way down, of course. Okay, so I've just connected these last stitches here, and now I have these 3 to do. I'm going to go into my chain space there and then find the first double crochet here, then do a second double crochet, find the second one there, and then the third double crochet, and I'm going to try and find a third location to go into this chain here, but if not, just go in between the chain and the double crochet. So pulling up a loop there and doing a slip stitch. There we go. Okay, so now we have our back joined. There we go. Let's cut off the yarn. And I think it's looking really nice. So as you can see, we now have a little bit of an opening here, which is perfect because this will allow us to have a little neck opening here, and we will have some space for some ribbing as well. So we are going to turn everything inside out. So make sure you have your cardigan laying in front of you like this. You're going to make a slip knot, insert your hook, and I always get started on the corners here because they are easy to find. So I just go into the corner chain spaces and I do 2 single crochets just for security. Voila. And then I tilt the stitches towards me so I can see the V's. I find the V of the first stitch and the V of the first stitch on the other side. And you can do single crochets, or I'm going to do just slip stitches. Slip stitches will make sure that you don't have a ridge for a seam. And for babies, I don't know whether they would feel the seam at all, but just to avoid, I am going to do slip stitches. And do these slip stitches quite loose. Don't make them too tight because obviously we're going to have to turn our garment inside out in a moment. And you want your stitches to lie nice and flat next to each other. Make sure you pick up the corresponding stitches each time, so check once in a while that you are still doing so. And then when you get to the end of the row, you go into the chain space And of course here you will have a location to go into there, and I'm just going to do 2 single crochets in there again for good adherence and insurance. And there we go. We're going to cut off the yarn and let's pull through the loop. And so now we've done one side, and now I'm going to do the other side. So I have now connected both the shoulders, so let's turn it inside out, and this is what the join looks like. So you need to just pull it apart a little bit so it lies a little bit flatter. As you can see, look at the difference. And so now that we've done this, we are going to, of course, do the finishing touches. But, I mean, this is a perfectly usable cardigan already. So you could stop here. We can do ribbing, we can do the collar here, and we can make it longer. So again, this is something that you can choose how you're going to do this. For example, here I have used half double crochets. I did quite a few rounds because I thought, you know what, I've got nothing else to do, let's do another round. I enjoy doing it. On the sleeves here I used single crochets because I wanted to keep it shorter, and I also decreased a few stitches, so I did 2 together, so I would have a stitch less in the next round, and this made it slightly go in. But of course, don't let it go in too much, because for babies it's handy if mums can get their hand in to then grab the baby's hand and then pull that through. I mean, that's how I got mine dressed anyway. So there we go. So that's one thing here. I did linen stitch, and look how pretty that looks because, of course, of the changing yarn. So linen stitch is single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, and then the opposite in the next row. And of course you can make it work, you know, decide how many you're doing in the corner. I think I did 1, 1, 1, something like that. So it's really easy to now do the cuffs and the ribbing here. It's not really ribbing as we have done in the cardigans, in the adult cardigans that we have made, but I thought it would be a little bit too overwhelming for such a small cardigan here. So today I am going to show you how to do a little bit of an edging here, but we will keep things quite simple. So for this baby cardigan I'm going to do a cuff of just single crochets, and I'm going to get started with doing my slip knot. There we go. Insert your hook, and with your cardigan with the good side facing out, so you've got the good side of the stitch facing you, you're just going to get started anywhere really. I like to get started sort of under the arm so you can't see it. There we go. So I go into a V. Any V is fine. And I do a single crochet. There we go. So this first round I'm just going to do single crochets, 1 in each stitch. When I get to the join here, it's just a matter of doing a sort of bridging the join but not creating too many stitches. So I'm doing 1 single crochet in the chain space and 1 single crochet here, and I'm bridging all the rest, you know, I'm not touching the rest. So there we go. So, and we continue with our single crochets. So I've made it all the way around to where I started. I've placed a single crochet in each stitch. Then here, this single crochet I'm going to skip. I'm going to go under the next V and do a slip stitch to close the round. Then I'm going to chain up 1, and I'm going to look for a V to go under and do a single crochet. There we go. So I tend to come up with a little rule for myself to do these reductions. So I've done 5 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I do a reduction. So a reduction is done by going into the next stitch, pulling up a loop, going into the next stitch and pulling up a loop again. Then you have 3 loops, you yarn over and you pull through the 3 loops. And this way in the next row you will have 1 stitch less. and then I do my 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then I do my reduction. Insert, pull up, yarn over, pull through the 3. I mean, you can do it differently. You can do 3 and a reduction. Just see how you feel, and also see how it goes. Is it going in too much? Is it not going in enough? But I wouldn't undo. If you feel you haven't done enough reductions, just do another round of reductions in the next round. Does it work out here? No, but I'm not worried. And the baby won't worry either. So I've got 3 stitches left, that's fine. Now I'm going to close my round. So it is certainly worth just laying down your sleeve and looking at the opening and seeing what kind of reduction you have achieved. If you want to do more, like I said, do another round and make another rule. It doesn't matter, just, achieve some more reductions. But I think this is fine. So what I'm going to do is just another row of single crochets. So just 1 single crochet in each stitch, just to make the cuff a little bit wider. Now make sure you do the same on both sleeves. I've already done this one, so make sure you do it the same so that you end up with the same size of opening on both your sleeves. So once again, I am making my slip knot, inserting my hook, and I'm going to get started. I like to get started sort of at the back here, so it doesn't sort of show at the front. Not that you're going to really see it. But yes, if we start here, then I can show you straight away what to do here.
With your slip knot on your hook, go under the 2 strands of the V and do a single crochet.
Right, so here we've been doing those slip stitches, so it might be more difficult to get into those. So I try to go under the slip stitch here. So coming in from lower down helps. 1 more under there, voila. And then here 1 in the corner chain space. And then here 1 around the double crochet, and then here 1 around the double crochet. I'm just going past this join here. Then here into the corner chain space, because that's plenty of stitches, and then we go 1 to each stitch again. So there we go. So I'm just doing a simple border of single crochets. So now that we're at the corner chain space, we're going to have to decide what to do. So I'm suggesting 2 single crochets, 2 chains, you turn and you add another 2 single crochets to the same chain space. And so the next round that you do, you'll be placing 2 single crochets, 2 chains and 2 single crochets into this chain 2 space here. And of course this might become a little bit pointy, so what I generally do is just skip this stitch here and just go straight into my second stitch for starting to do the single crochets on the side. So when you get to the top part of your cardigan here, where you've joined the shoulders around the neck, you're going to have to place your single crochets quite strategically. So place 1 in the chain space there, 1 in the chain space here. Don't place too many either, okay? Again, 1 around the double crochet, skipping the join here, also around the double crochet, into the chain space, into the chain space here maybe. Did I do that there? Yes, okay, that chain space, yeah, so make sure indeed you do the same things on both sides. And then here I just start going into the single crochets again. And like I said, when I did these, I just keep going round until it looks good. It's the width that I want and I'm fed up with it basically. So when I think it is wide enough, I will stop doing my rounds and start with attaching the buttons. Okay, so I have gone round my border here 3 times with single crochets, and I think that's fine. And so now I'm going to be using one of those thinner needles with still quite a big eye, and I will be sewing on my buttons. Now you might think, Anya, we never made any buttonholes. Well, I'm just using these here as buttonholes. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I attach my button onto my ribbing here, and it should be at the height where there is one of these holes there. So that's just about where I'm going to be putting it. So I'm going to go and start with sewing in my yarn. So that's already done there. So all I need to do is sort of do a little bit of loop the loop. Right, I still have my button in place. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through my fabric to the other side. I made it through a hole, but before I actually commit, let's pull it through. That's not going to matter. We can still slightly move the position. I'm going to make sure that it's going to be at that level. There we go, and that's fine. So I'm now going to go to the opposite, go through the ribbing, and then come back out through another one of the buttonholes. There we go. Now obviously make sure you attach this really well, because you don't want a button to come off when the baby is wearing this, or maybe when they're playing with the buttons or something like that. You could also just put ribbons on to tie those, or no buttons at all. So make sure you make an informed decision here on what you might need to do with the buttons. So let's try it. There we go. And is it still level here? Yeah, I think it is. So I think that's going to work. There we go. And so now, of course, you're going to have to do the other 2, and make sure again that you have them at the level of one of those holes here, but also sort of, space them out nicely. There we go, like that. So these are the 3 sizes of cardigan that I have made now. This is a 7 round hexagon. So this could be for like a newborn, or up to sort of like 1 to 3 months. This one here is 10 rounds. We've just made this, and this could be for like 3 to 6 months. Now this one here, the Emotions one, is also 10 rounds, but the yarn is a little bit thicker. It's a thicker DK, so the cardigan is a little bit bigger, as you can tell. Look. And so I would suggest this could serve for 6 to 9 months. Now the thing is, you need to just find out how big the baby is. So ask the mum for a garment that the baby already wears, or of course if it's your baby, just measure it. And then once you've got your measurement, once you've got started, then the next cardigan you make, you'll make it a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger, and that way your baby will always have a cardigan throughout its growth period. So it's really easy to adjust the size of the cardigan. And what you could do as well here is do more rows on the back. So instead of just doing the one extra side, you could come back and then you do the same on the other side. You do one extra side and then you use the second one to come back and to join. So you can make this bit here a little bit wider by going up and down, and then of course joining in the last one. So that way you will have quite a lot of possibilities to not run out of sizes for a growing baby. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you will make a baby cardigan really easy to make and lovely for the baby to wear. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!